see myself in 5 years, but I can tell you that I will work my best to be the most successful artist that I can be in 5 years. I'm a human being, and people put me on a very unrealistic pedestal, and all these expectations, I'm ashamed because that I didn't want people to think that that's the kind of person I fell in love with that person. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing that that's the type of person.
She is one of the most powerful women alive. $1 billion empire, 3 children, the most streamed female artist of her generation. The world thinks it knows Rihanna. But what if everything you think you know is just the surface? What if underneath the Fenty glow, the sold-out fashion lines, and the Super Bowl performances, there's a story so raw, so dark, so jaw-dropping that even her biggest fans never saw it coming. Today, we are pulling back the curtain. 20 revelations about Rihanna, the real ones, the ones that were buried in court documents, whispered in Barbados, and hidden behind billion-dollar press releases. Buckle up, because by the time we get to number 1, your jaw will be on the floor. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now, because this is exactly the kind of content we drop every week, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. 20. Her real name isn't Rihanna. Let's start with something that sounds small but isn't. The woman the world calls Rihanna. Her birth name is Robin Rihanna Fenty. Plain old Robin. The name Rihanna was her middle name, plucked from obscurity and turned into a global brand. So every time you chant her name at a concert, you're actually chanting her middle name. That's the kind of reinvention most people only dream about. 19. She was discovered at 15 and locked into a 6-album deal before she could drive. Rihanna's demo reached Jay-Z just as he became president and CEO of Def Jam Recordings. He invited her to audition and was so convinced by what he saw that his team told him not to let her leave the building without a deal. She was 15 years old. She waited in Jay-Z's office while lawyers finalized a 6-album contract with Def Jam, then canceled scheduled meetings with every other label. Think about that. A teenager from Barbados, sitting in a New York office, signing away years of her life in a deal she probably barely understood. Some would call that a lucky break. Others would call it something more complicated. 18. Doctors thought. She had a brain tumor as a child. Here's one that barely gets talked about. As a child, Rihanna suffered from intense headaches so severe they required multiple CT scans, with doctors at one point suspecting a tumor. She was a little girl in Barbados, being wheeled through hospitals, terrified. The headaches weren't random either. When her parents finally divorced, Rihanna stopped suffering from migraines, and the quality of her life improved dramatically. The connection between her childhood stress and those mysterious headaches tells you everything about what was happening inside that house. 17. Her father beat her mother, and she watched every time. This is where the story gets dark. Rihanna's childhood was shaped by her father's alcoholism and crack cocaine addiction, which strained her parents' marriage. She has spoken about witnessing her father physically abuse her mother, describing her as one of the strongest women I know. She once told Rolling Stone, "I could tell when a conversation was getting too intense, when it was going to get physical. And Fridays would be scary because he would come home drunk. He'd get paid, and half of it would go toward alcohol. He'd walk in the door, and it was all eyes on him." This was not an occasional incident. This was every week. This was Rihanna's normal. 16. He hit her too. She was 7 years old. Rihanna revealed that her father hit her in the face once when she was 7 years old. after she asked to stay at the beach 10 more minutes, and the slap left a handprint on her cheek. She described her mother's reaction. My mother saw my face, how traumatized I was. You know how, when you know you did something wrong and you deserve to get beat? This was out of nowhere. A handprint on a 7-year-old's face for asking to stay at the beach. This is the childhood that built the woman the world calls a queen. 15, she vowed she'd never date a man like her father, then did exactly that. In an interview with ABC after the Chris Brown assault, Rihanna made a confession that stopped everyone cold. She said, "Domestic violence is not somebody that people want anybody to know, so she would just hide it in the house. I always said to myself, I'm never going to date somebody like my dad. Never." And then she fell in love with Chris Brown. The parallels are haunting. The girl who grew up watching her father's rage ended up in the back seat of a Lamborghini, bleeding, fighting for her life. History repeating itself in the most devastating way possible. 14. Chris Brown. Attack. The detail. Everyone forgot. Rihanna described the moment Brown attacked her. There was no person when I looked at him. He had no soul in his eyes, just blank. The altercation followed an argument over a text message she found on his phone from another woman. The more in love we became, the more dangerous we became for each other. And during the assault, she had difficulty breathing and had no idea how it would end. That's all I kept thinking the whole time. When is it going to stop? When is it going to stop? The photos leaked by police showed a young woman's face covered in bruises. She was 20 years old, 13, her own father. Sold stories to the press about the assault. After the Chris Brown attack, Rihanna's world was already destroyed. Then came the next betrayal. In the April 2011 print edition of Vogue, Rihanna spoke about how her father went to the press and told them what she described as a bunch of lies, exploiting one of the most painful moments of her life for media attention. And shockingly, Ronald Fenty also publicly spoke affectionately about Chris Brown after Brown had assaulted his own daughter. The man who had beaten her mother forgave the man who had beaten his daughter. The cycle of abuse complete. 12. She spent $58,000 putting her abusive father through rehab despite everything. The abuse she witnessed, the lies he sold to the press. Rihanna still tried to save her father. In 2013, she put Ronald through a $58,000 Malibu rehab program. It ultimately didn't work. In December 2014, at Rihanna's own inaugural Diamond Ball in Beverly Hills, her father reportedly had to be removed for drunken behavior. Before she even arrived, she paid $58,000 to help a man who once slapped a handprint onto her face, and he showed up drunk to her party. That is the definition of a broken father-daughter relationship. 11. She sued her father for $75 million, and eventually, even Rihanna's patience ran out. Rihanna filed a lawsuit against her father, Ronald Fenty, alleging he and his business partner, Moses Jockton Perkins, had created a company called Fenty Entertainment and fraudulently misrepresented to third parties that the company was affiliated with her. The suit alleged they negotiated a deal for Rihanna to play 15 shows in Latin America for $15 million, without her knowledge or authorization. She sought $75 million in damages and sent multiple cease and desist letters, all of which he ignored. She eventually dropped the case, likely after a private resolution. But the fact that it ever came to this, unforgettable. 10. The Beyoncé feud nobody talks about. Here's the gossip the publicists tried to bury. Reports have long swirled about a cold war between Rihanna and Beyoncé, one of music's most politely denied rivalries. Reports of a secret feud between the two have resurfaced multiple times, with claims that their husbands were called in to force peace talks between the two superstars. Neither woman has confirmed it publicly. But notice how these two icons, who have dominated the same era of music, have almost never publicly celebrated each other. In an industry that runs on alliances, that silence is loud. 9. The cheating rumors that rocked her relationship. Rihanna and abusive Rocky look like the perfect power couple. But behind the scenes, drama. Cheating rumors hit while Rihanna was pregnant with their first child, with claims circulating that abusive Rocky had been intimate with shoe designer Amina Muaddi. Muaddi denied everything publicly. Then in 2024, fresh rumors surfaced alleging abusive Rocky had cheated with rapper Saweetie, with some claiming the alleged affair took place while Rihanna was pregnant with their second child. No proof has ever been confirmed. But the fact that these rumors have hit not once, not twice, but repeatedly, the internet hasn't forgotten. 8. She admitted she went a full year without drinking, and told nobody. When the clock struck midnight on New Year's 2025, Rihanna made a surprise confession in a video with friends. "Y'all, I didn't drink all year. I didn't drink all year." No announcement, no press release, no brand partnership. The richest female musician in the world quietly went completely sober for an entire year and said nothing until it was over. Was it awful? An industry built on appearances and cultivated narratives, that kind of private discipline is remarkable. The question is, what made her do it? 7. Someone shot up her home with an AR-15. In March 2026, the world woke up to a story that felt like fiction. The Los Angeles Police Department reported that Rihanna's Beverly Hills home, which she shares with abusive Rocky, was shot at by a suspect armed with an AR-15 style rifle. A female suspect was taken into custody. Rihanna was home at the time of the shooting, but no injuries were reported. Read that again. She was home. Her children were likely there too. Someone targeted the home of a billionaire mother of 3 with a military-style rifle. The story was buried under celebrity gossip within days. It shouldn't have been. 6. She's been holding her fans hostage with a fake album for a decade, since her 2016 album Anti. Rihanna has continuously teased her 9th studio album, known to fans as R9, without ever releasing it. In 2019, she trolled her own fan base on Instagram, writing, "Me listening to R9 by myself and refusing to release it." In 2024, while launching Fenty hair, she joked about how long it had taken. In early 2026, she was still posting studio footage with 0 release date. The woman who built a $1.4 billion beauty empire can apparently drop 40 shades of foundation and a full lingerie show, but cannot release a music album. Her fans have been waiting 9 years. At this point, it's either genius trolling or a story nobody is fully telling. Tosh. She nearly fell out of a moving car as a 4-year-old. This one is almost unbelievable. Rihanna once told co-star Jim Parsons that as a 4-year-old, she imagined talking to tiny green men. And one day, believing she was about to enter another world, she flung open the car door while they were on the highway. Her mother reached back and slammed the door before the unthinkable happened. Rihanna herself laughed it off, saying it's not safe to have an imaginary friend. But consider what this tells you about the dissociative, dream world escape of a child growing up in a violent home. A little girl opening a car door on a highway to get to somewhere safer. 4. The music video that got banned. And what it was really about, the music video for Rihanna's 2011 single, Man Down, which depicted her shooting a man in a train station, drew intense criticism from the Parents Television Council. Her We Found Love video, portraying a turbulent drug-fueled romance, was condemned by the Rape Crisis Center for what they described as a troubling message. But here's what the critics missed. These weren't shock tactics. They were confessions. A woman processing real violence, real trauma, real love gone wrong. Through art. The videos were her telling the truth. The world just wasn't ready to hear it. 3. She's worth $1.4 billion, but still hasn't married the father of her children. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky have been together since 2020. They share 3 children, RZA, Riot, and a daughter born in 2025, but remain unmarried. In a world obsessed with rings and ceremonies, the woman who sells luxury lingerie and redefines beauty standards refuses to perform marriage for an audience. She said publicly that she doesn't need a certificate to define her family. But the whispers in Hollywood are louder than that. Sources say she's still processing what relationships are supposed to look like. When your first model of love was a man with a handprint on his daughter's face and crack foil in the ashtray, marriage can feel like a risk that no amount of billions can insure. 2. She left the biggest music career in the world to sell lipstick, and won most artists at Rihanna's peak would have kept releasing albums. She walked away from a music career that had sold over 250 million records and built a beauty empire instead. Fenty Beauty launched in 2017, became a global phenomenon almost immediately, and is now valued at several $1 billion. Rihanna reportedly owns approximately 50% of the brand, the single largest source of her $1.4 billion fortune. She didn't just pivot. She outperformed every musician who stayed in music. The girl who sold clothes at a roadside stall in Barbados to eat is now one of the wealthiest self-made women on the planet. That's not just a glow-up. That's warfare. 1. The darkest revelation. She became everything she was afraid of, and survived. It here is the truth that ties every one of these revelations together. Rihanna grew up in a house of violence, swearing she would never love a man like her father. She did. She left a man after he nearly killed her and was publicly blamed for it. She watched her own father sell her pain to tabloids. She paid to save him from his addiction. She sued him. She dropped the suit. She went sober in secret. She had 3 children without a wedding ring. She got shot at in her own home. And through all of it, she built a $1 billion empire, performed at the Super Bowl while pregnant, and has never once asked for the world's permission to survive on her own terms. The darkest thing about Rihanna isn't any single scandal. It's that the world consumed her trauma as entertainment for 20 years, and she turned it into Fenty Beauty, Savage X Fenty, and a legacy no one can touch. Robin Rihanna Fenty didn't become a queen because life was kind to her. She became one because it wasn't. If you learned something you didn't know before today, please do well to subscribe, or you won't see us again, as we have more dark secrets to expose, and you're not ready for half of it.